All right, welcome back to the 69 Pillars of Success. Got a powerful message for you today. I'd argue that all of them are very powerful, but this one in particular is going to show you why you have a dream that's over here and why you keep falling short, and why I've kept falling short of many of the dreams that I've had in my lifetime. You know, you've heard a lot of my personal stories where I talk about things that I wanted to do that I didn't accomplish. And in every case, it's tied to the story that I'm going to share with you today. It's a very powerful story, and it's one that, even though this person in history is revered as one of the most important people throughout human history, you'll find that he's not unique. He's very much flawed, just like we are. We have a tendency to put people that have reached some level of celebrity status on these pedestals, not realizing that they're just human beings, much like us, who are flawed and make mistakes just like we do. And this mistake cost this particular person not to see his dream come to fruition until, according to history, at least the history that we can verify, he didn't really get close to his dream till he was almost 100 years old. All right, so imagine that. Like, you have a dream that you're fighting and fighting for, and then because of the decisions you make, you don't get the dream until you're 100 years old. That's insane. Now, some people will argue that the way history was recorded and time was documented, that he may not have actually been 100. That's fine. The point is, he took a long time and was very old before his number one dream came to pass. And what I want to share with you today is some things that I've learned about my life, how I've done the same. It always comes down to, you have a big vision, but you're making short-term, short-sighted decisions, trying to take shortcuts to the vision instead of going through the process that has to be done to get you to the dream. You want to get there tomorrow. And so, let me find out. I deal with this a lot when I'm coaching YouTubers, for example, where they want to have 1 million followers tomorrow. So like, hey, B, teach me. I literally had a guy that had maybe 100 subscribers, and he told me, he's like, B, I'm one video away from blowing up. I know it because my content is so amazing. Can you give me the one trick that's going to get me all these hundreds of thousands of followers? I know there's a trick that I'm missing that all these successful people have. And he didn't like my answer. I was like, well, the trick is, all those successful people have been working for 3 to 6 years to get to where they are. So get to work. And he thought, well, no, my content is awesome. That means there's a trick that I'm missing. And so he spent all his time looking for tricks, and it's why nobody was following his content, because instead of being disciplined and consistent in making good stuff, if his content indeed was great like he said it was, he was looking for the formula and the trick where he could just magically get his video to get millions of views. And I'm sorry to say that there are tips and tricks and hacks, but those are things that play in the margins. Those aren't the things that make you famous. Nobody gets famous overnight. Literally, well, I don't want to say literally, because maybe there was one guy that saved the Pope from a burning helicopter or something. But I bet you he didn't maintain his fame after he did that. So I want you to listen to this story. I'm only going to read a piece of it because it's long. It's 16 chapters. So we're just going to read an excerpt from 2 of the chapters today. I'm actually going to read this piece because I don't think I can say it as well as it's written here in the ancient text. But just understand, the title of today's video is Stop Chasing Ishmael. And if you're familiar with Old Testament biblical stories, Ishmael was the firstborn of Abram, or Abraham, as we come to know him and know him in modern times, or Abraham, or you know, however they want to pronounce. There's a bunch of different ways I've seen the name spelled and pronounced. But the point here, and by the way, if you're not a Bible person, you don't have to be. This principle applies to life. Okay, there's a lot of things that happen in the Bible that apply to real life, because most of the stories are about real people who were fundamentally flawed. I mean, some of the Bible's greatest heroes had problems, okay? So I'm not reading this story as if this person has surpassed some level of humanity, other than the fact he's no longer on earth. But the principle in the story is what I want you to care about. This isn't some video where I'm trying to convert you into a belief system. It's a video where I'm trying to share information about mistakes that a very important person made that screwed him, that if he hadn't made those mistakes, he wouldn't be in the boat that he's in. All right, so like I said, this is the story of Abram, or Abraham, as we come to know him, and his firstborn, Ishmael. And let's just go right in. I'm going to read two very quick excerpts, and then I'm going to break it down for you. This is titled, The Lord's Covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. So this is basically God talking to Abram in the story. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Now you have to understand, historically and culturally at this time, bearing a son was insanely important because you were to pass down your legacy and the name of your house and the respect and the reputation of your house to a son to run your estate. This is a very patriarchal society. You know, feminism was not getting it in back then. But the point is, this is a big deal. Like in today's world, we'd be like, what's the big deal? Go adopt a kid. Like, what's wrong with you? But in this culture, what he's going through is in some cases worse than death for the way that this culture behaved. Just to give you an idea of why it's important. Then the word of the Lord came to him. God talking to Abram again. This man, Eliezer, will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. This is a promise that God is making to Abram. He took him outside. God took Abram outside. Apparently they were hanging out together. That's pretty cool. Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, God said to Abram, so shall your offspring be. Now think about how awesome that promise is. Like God basically comes to him and says, yo, nations are going to be born. He goes on to say, nations will be born under the children that you give birth to. That's huge. You're basically going to be the patriarch of earth to a degree. That's a big deal. You know, that's a big promise. That's a big vision. Many of you probably have visions where it's you want, like me, you want to change the world. My vision, by the way, I am not delusional enough to believe or think that my vision isn't insane. Like this dude wants to reach over 1 billion people, and he's at this point, he's reached maybe 5 million. You're a lot of thousand millions off, homeboy. But it's still the dream, and I'm still working toward it. And I'm not taking shortcuts, right, to try to get in front of people. I'm putting in the work. I'm maintaining a level of discipline and consistency, which interestingly enough, I've never had more growth in the things that I do than now when I really got focused on doing things the right way and following the process and respecting and learning to love because you have to understand, people with my personality type do not like process. We like outcomes. And so it's very hard for us to stay focused on a process that's not getting us the outcomes, right? Especially if we've never been through the process before and there's no guarantee that it's going to give us the outcomes. Sometimes it's hard for us to stick with things. I don't know if you can relate to that. But this promise is insane. Like, dude, count the stars in the sky. That's literally how many children are going to come from this child that you have. Word? Okay, that's awesome, right? So to put in perspective, the dreams, the desires, the goals that you have are absolutely possible, but you're going to have to put in the work and go through the process in order to get them. Abram doesn't do that. And check this out. This is the next chapter. I'm skipping quite a bit of the story, but it's for the sake of your time and attention span. Now, Sarai, who is later to be known as Sarah. Right now, she's got, these people change their names a lot. And their names have meanings in this culture where, you know, the child that they're about to have means laughter. It's very interesting culture. Now, Sarai, said Abram's wife, had borne him no children. Now, remember, God just made this huge promise you're going to have children, more stars. There are less stars in the sky than you're going to have children. That's when you think about how many stars are in the sky today. It's pretty crazy, right? But Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne no children. But, and this is where they get in trouble, is the but. One of my mentors says, your problem is you can't get your butt out of the way. But she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. By the way, that wasn't true. Remember we talk about mindset? God wasn't doing anything to prevent her from having children. Not a thing. But she assumed that that was the case. Again, going back to giving her power away. She is blaming someone else for something that's not happening for her or to her. Instead of taking ownership and saying, this hasn't happened yet, maybe I need to eat better. Maybe there's some other things I need to do. You know, in modern times, there's science and medicine that could have figured out what was the issue with her and helped her. They didn't have that back then, okay? But she blames God, which is, you know, the whole Bible is about people blaming God for stuff that he didn't do. The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. What? Perhaps I can build a family through her. What? Like, if my wife came down here and says, look, we ain't had no kids. Now, we have 4 kids. We don't have this problem. She's like, look, I'm not having any kids. I want you to go. One of my homegirls is going to come over and you're going to sleep with her and have a baby with her that I can raise. That is insane. Now, I get culturally you had concubine. Like, it's a different culture. It's not 2017 in this story. But what? And notice Abram isn't like, no, I will honor my wife. He's like, word? I get to sleep with the slave. Because remember, they're old at this point. Like, they're getting a little crusty in age. And now he's going to get this young girl. He's going to get to sleep with it. Like, that would totally be on TMZ. Like, crazy human patriarch who talks to God is sleeping with slave girls. Like, what? But let me get off the humor so I can make the point. Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her, and understand that slave in this culture is not what it means like in American slavery. Okay, it's quite a bit different. All right, think of it more like an indentured servant who also has rights within the house. So for example, in ancient Hebrew culture, if say you had a slave and you had children who were to be your heir, but you died and your children weren't of age, the slave would actually take over the estate. So quite a bit different than what we know in modern times as slavery. Just to make sure you're not hearing slave like, oh my God, this story is more horrible than it sounds. Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife, which is very weird. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Of course she did. Because the baby she's carrying is this dude, and he's not showing her any love. He's showing his wife love. And Sarai said to Abram, you are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. Wait a minute, Sarai. This was your idea. You came to me and said, hey, go sleep with homegirl and get me a baby. And now you're mad at me because I did what you asked me to do? Okay, sure. You're responsible for the suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now she knows she's pregnant, and she despises me. And so, to get to the end of the story, Hagar gives birth to Ishmael, which does not go well, right? It's not a happy time, right? And God basically like, well, hold up. I told you that you and your wife were going to have a baby. Why are you down the road sleeping with homegirl? And now you have family problems. Now you have a child that's going to become illegitimate because, by the way, the end of the story is he kicks Hagar and Ishmael out of the camp. Like, and he provides them provisions and stuff. But, you know, what? These are the forefathers, by the way, of what's going on in the Middle East. You know? And I'm not saying that one incident has led to all these wars and craziness, but these are the people that are the forefathers of this. Look at the decisions that they're making habitually throughout history. The point here is that Abram tries to get what he wants by taking a shortcut, and it goes horribly. Not only does it not work, like it screws him, and it takes more time away from him doing what he's actually supposed to be doing, which is having the child, which is Isaac. This is the baby they end up having. I won't read the rest of the story to you. Eventually, it does come to pass. But he's like 100 by the time he gets it done. Like, what? What are we going through here? And so the moral of this story is that stop chasing Ishmael. You want Isaac. You want the big dream. You want the son who's going to be the father of all the stars in the sky numbers. But you keep taking shortcuts, trying to get short-term gains, whether it's money or relationships. You're hanging out with these women or these dudes because you're lonely. And you're deciding, well, maybe this guy will turn into Prince Charming if I just work with him. Not going to happen, especially if he's over the age of 25. Because by the time you're 25, you pretty much are who you are, Chief. You can make some changes. You can change the way you think, but the core of who you are is still going to be the core of who you are. So my point to you here is you've got the big dream. And like Dimitri Martin says, the closer you get to your dream, the more attractive the exits are going to look, especially if you have a dream that's going to take time. My dream is going to take time. I will not have reached 1 billion people tomorrow, and trying to take shortcuts is going to cause me to make decisions that are ultimately going to hurt my ability to do what I want to do. Versus saying, okay, if I want to reach 1 billion people, let's just do the math on that, right? Let's actually do some practical work here so we can start talking about process. All right, so we want 1 billion. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we want 1 billion, right? Want to reach 1 billion people. Let's say I want to reach 1 billion people in the next 10 years, right? Let's say by 10 years from now, 10 years is probably aggressive unless some big break happens. Let's say in the next 20 years of my life, I want to have reached 1 billion people. Let's just do a little math. Let's divide 1 billion by 20. That means I have to reach 50 million people a year. All right, let's break that down further, right? Let's divide that by 12. Or excuse me, I divided 1 billion by, okay, so yeah, let's divide it by 12, which will give us months. Wait a minute, that ain't right. that made the number go higher. All right, so 50 million divided by, I think I hit times, divided by 12 is 4 million people a month. Now, I'm not going to be reaching 4 million. If you want to take it a step further, I always love breaking things down into daily goals, right? It's one of my habits. So I need to reach 138,888 people per day in order to reach my goal. Now, that sounds impossible right now because per day right now, I'm probably reaching 10,000. So I need to 10x what I'm doing, on a daily basis, and depending on the content that I'm producing. Like right now, for example, I have a Facebook post that's reached 500,000 people. So that did that in a matter of about 4 weeks. So it ebbs and it flows, but I would have to consistently produce that type of content to get hundreds of thousands of viewers a day, which, by the way, is not impossible. There's YouTubers right now who do 1 million views a day, like PewDiePie. But it's going to take me time to get there. A couple of reasons why. One, I don't make insanely entertaining content where people are just like, I can't wait for his next video because he's so funny or he's so this, right? Most people are not consuming inspirational, motivational, and educational content around the clock. But this is an attainable goal. 138,889 people a day is what I have to reach. I won't be there tomorrow. I'm about 10 times lower than where I need to be. But if I keep grinding, I'm going to reach more people, giving me more reach. And you see what I'm saying? Like if I started trying to take shortcuts, like trying to hack what's a cool top 10 video I could do that I could get in front of millions of people. You know what that's going to do? Yeah, that's going to get me in front of probably a couple million people if I do it right. But that takes me off message, right? Completely off message, because I would have to make something that's not really related to what I'm doing. And then I'd get all those viewers, and then all those viewers be like, why is this guy talking about, what is a cognitive bias? We want the comedy guy. And so I would potentially split my audience and then have an issue where I could eventually turn those people away. Like, wait a minute, you were the funny guy, now you're the... And it's not to say that I don't do humor and comedy. I totally do. I embed it into a lot of the work that I do. But my point is, I can't start trying to take shortcuts, looking for hacks to beat the system. Because while I'm wasting time looking for hacks or trying to get me to teach, I should live stream my video on YouTube because then it's going to get more watch time. I should live stream a pre-recorded video. Like, there's all kinds of gurus teaching tricks like that, which if they understand the YouTube algorithm, doing that doesn't really help you. In fact, it can actually hurt you in the long run if you do it that way. But if I just stay the course, not only will I be able to reach over 140,000 people a day, I'll be able to reach way more. The challenge is it's going to take me time. And what most people don't like is to wait and be patient. They want Ishmael. If I sleep with concubine girl now, I'll get a baby in 9 months. If I keep sleeping with my wife, the story of Abram, not me, it may not ever happen. And the key thing I want you to pay attention to here is the Lord has kept me from having children. That is the crux of this entire video. She is wrong. You know, and you can fill in the blank. You can take the Lord out. You can say the universe. You can say your circumstances. My circumstances are keeping me from making the money. No, they're not. You are. And that's the fundamental flaw in her thinking that led to this entire issue. And by the way, I'm not blaming her. Abram was the stupid one. He should have been like, hey, no, let's stay the course. Let's do what God promised us. We'll just stay the course and continue to have faith. And maybe we'll evaluate ourselves. Maybe what we're going through has nothing to do with God and has everything to do with short-term, short-sighted decisions we're making that aren't leading to our goal. Right? But when you start blaming other people and circumstances for your problems, you have already lost. And that is the point of this video. You are chasing Ishmael because you tried it the right way and it didn't work overnight, so you got impatient and then you jumped ship. And when that thing didn't work, you jumped ship. And when that thing didn't work, you jumped ship. And by the way, the dream ship is sitting right here waiting for you to get back on it. But you jumped ship. You keep jumping ship, and what you realize, you look back 10 years later, you jumped on 20 different ships that didn't get you where you wanted, and now you're right back where you were 20 years before. And you gotta go through the process. There are no shortcuts. You know, one of my mentors would argue, and he'd say, you are the shortcut. Yes, I am your shortcut to finding the information you need to win. But there's no shortcuts to the work you have to do. There's an optimal way to do it, which is ultimately shorter than jumping from ship to ship. But that's not a shortcut. That's doing it the right way. Okay? Stop chasing Ishmael. And the reason why you're chasing these phony dreams, if you've read the book Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, like I've recommended many times, you saw him talk about something called a shadow career. And that's what a lot of you are doing. You have a dream to be this, but you're pursuing all these other 70 different things because this is really hard and it's not working overnight. And if I fail at these 70 things, it doesn't hurt as bad as if I fail at the dream. What I'm telling you is you won't fail at the dream. The general that knows themselves and knows their enemy will not fail. You will get the dream. It may just take a little bit longer than you like. But I guarantee you, if you start working and apply discipline and consistency, it'll work faster than you think. All right, so stay the course. Stop chasing Ishmael and go through, learn to love the grind and the process and learn to love losing. It's such a wonderful part of your development when you're working on a project that doesn't work. Because when it doesn't work, it's like a murder scene. There's all kinds of forensics all over the floor showing you why this didn't work. When you win, you don't even think about it. Now, I do, because I learned from Tony Robbins that when you when you win, you ponder. When you win, you party. When you lose, you ponder. What I've started doing is when I win, I ponder. Like I said, I have a post on Facebook right now that's going to hit 1 million views here. Probably in a couple of weeks. I'm pondering every day, like, what did I do to make that win? How did I write the copy? What did the picture look like? What did the copy on the picture say? I'm looking at that very closely, like, okay, how can I replicate that success? But when I lose, I ponder too, like, what could I have done better in this situation? I'm not going to blame anybody. You know, I've talked about having clients that have screwed me over, right? I don't blame them. What could I have done better? I'll tell you one thing I could have done better is not give that particular client so much of my time for free. Because I gave them so much time and so much information, it's my belief that they just took what I gave them and they're trying to do it themselves instead of hiring me to do it. Which they're not obligated to work with me, although they said they were going to work with me and then ran away. But I blame me for that. I don't blame the client. whether they're shady or not is irrelevant. And maybe they're not shady. Maybe they found a better deal. I have no idea. The point is, there's something in that meeting, in that whole experience that I had, that I could have done better. I could have read the signs better. I could have been a better judge of character in reading people, because I had some reservations after I had the first encounter, and I didn't listen to my instincts. So, fall in love with the process. As always, friends, remember, questions, get at me on BryantChambers page on Facebook. Like the page, follow the page, and click show first so you can see when I upload new content. Subscribe here on YouTube if you have not already. If you're watching this on YouTube, you may be watching this on my website, and then don't worry about it. Anyway, remember that I love you all very much. We are stronger than I. By the way, if you want me to coach you one-on-one, definitely link in the description, BryantChambers.com/coaching. I have, at the time of this recording, a session opening up in January to coach people one-on-one. If you're interested, holler at me. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.